Jay Harris back on Sportscenter. Time to dig into the NFL draft. Mike Tannenbaum ready to call his shots for the top 10 in next month's draft. He sees Michigan's Aiden Hutchinson as the top pick for Jacksonville, followed by cornerback Sauce Gardner at number 2 overall. And he also has Carolina taking the quarterback plunge with Kenny Pickett at 6. And our NFL front office insider Mike Tannenbaum and senior NFL draft analyst Mel Kiper Jr. joining us now. All right, gents. Mike, I'm going to start with you. You have the Jets taking Garrett Wilson at number 4. What about Wilson makes him the top wide receiver off the board and good for the Jets?
Jay, he's the best athlete in the draft, and he only had 2 drops last year for Ohio State. When you combine that with his production, 12 touchdowns, 15 yards a catch, frequently you would see the first guy miss. He is a dynamic playmaker, Jay, that the Jets desperately need, especially on the outside. And he can make some of their other players be Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios better. But make no mistake about it, he is a bona fide number 1 difference maker on the outside for the New York Jets.
All right, Mike Tannenbaum likes Garrett Wilson at number 4 for the Jets. Mel, you have another wide receiver in Drake London going at number 4. What about his skill set makes him a better fit, in your opinion, for the Jets?
Jay, completely different in terms of his size, basketball background. You think where he is right now in terms of coming off that injury, 8 games, 88 receptions, contested grabs go his way. He's that power forward mentality on the basketball court you saw translate to the football field. To me, he gives him the size. Mike mentioned Berrios and Elijah Moore. Size, he gives you that length he gives you for Zach Wilson, that red zone threat. I like Garrett Wilson. I think you're splitting hairs here, but I think Drake London would be a good fit. So would Wilson, more explosive, but I think they'd both be really good picks. Will they take him at 4? Will they wait to 10 and see who's available? Be interesting to see what the Jets do.
London, by the way, averaged just a shade under 136 yards a game last season, second best in the FBS, Sage.
So the question now is, what about the guys who actually have to cover those receivers, the cornerbacks? And Mike, you have Ahmad Gardner at number 2, and a total of 6 cornerbacks being taken in that first round. This is in your mock draft. Mel Kiper, was that a little head shake there? I don't know if you agree, because you have 3 going in your first round in your latest mock draft. So, Mike, let's focus on this. From a GM's perspective, why such a big-time emphasis on this particular group in this draft?
Sage, all offseason, we keep hearing about quarterbacks and receivers and Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. We got to get off the field at some point, and Ahmad Gardner starting at number 2, and the rest of the guys go in the first round. They all have the ability to play man-to-man, and at some point on 3rd down, you have to play man-to-man and be able to get off the field. This is no doubt an era of offensive football, and we're seeing points and all the fireworks. But if we want to win championships consistently, at some point, we got to get off the field, and there's no better way to do that than be able to play man-to-man on the back.
Could go in the first round. Again, his mock draft. Mel, you only have 3. So when you look at this class as a whole and evaluate their talent, is that a reach? What's your thought on what Mike says with 6?
Mike talks about the demand stage, and he's right. You need these guys. You need corners in this league. You don't just need 2, you need 4. So I agree. The demand is there. I didn't think the grade of these corners was worthy of being in the first round. I'm talking about the guys after the Elite 3. Kyler Gordon, to me, slots in at 4. I think Andrew Booth Jr. was expected to be that elite corner. He had an up-and-down season. Then you think about where we are right now with Roger McCreary, more of a slot corner, lacks length. I love Daxton Hill. If there's a defensive back in this draft that is vastly underrated, it's Daxton Hill from Michigan. He can cover in the slot. He tackles extremely well, tremendous range. He gets after the quarterback. He can do it all. And I think if you can get Daxton Hill in the late first, early second round, he will be one of the best defensive backs overall coming out of this draft.
You know what? The good thing is it seems like there's a lot to choose from in this year's draft. By the way, in 9 of the last 10 drafts, at least 5 DBs, cornerbacks and safeties have been drafted in the first round. Do you have another question?
I do. For the GM, Mike Tannenbaum, the quarterback prospects always talked about. In 2021, there was a lot of draft movement to go up and get a quarterback. Many are saying that this is a down year for QBs. So how do you, as a GM, balance the value of your pick versus the value of the quarterback you might need?
Jay, this is way, way, way harder than it sounds. You have to be disciplined, and it's so tempting to say, gosh, we need a quarterback, let's go get him. Cincinnati Bengals, actually a great example of this going back a number of years where they had 4th pick in the draft and they take A.J. Green first, and then at the top of the 2nd round, they come back and take Andy Dalton, and it really worked out well because Green and Dalton really picked where they are. And you look at this year's class, Malik Willis here from Liberty, Kenny Pickett from Pitt. There's some things to like about them. Like I have Matt Corral going at the bottom of the first round, but you need to be disciplined and stick to your board. And if you overdraft them, you're setting them up for failure and you're not doing a service to your own organization. But I'm just telling you, it's really hard to do, but you got to try to pick them to the extent you can as you graded them.
It should be fun. Mr. Tannenbaum, Mr. Kiper, thank you, gents.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
More sports, ESPN. Okay, stop me if you've heard this before. The Jacksonville Jaguars have the first overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. I know. I did not cut and paste this script from last year, but I could have because, yeah, it's like deja vu. Second year in a row, Jacksonville picking first. The good news is they already have their guy, their franchise quarterback. He's set in stone. Question now is, what will they do in the trenches where they are in desperate need of improvement? But the Jaguars aren't alone. Mel Kiper Jr., Todd McShay, take a look at the teams who need the most improvement on the O-line and D-line, with Shea Cornette leading the way.
All right, we're about a month away from the NFL draft, and do you wonder who needs the most help in the trenches? Well, you've come to the right place. Let's check in with our NFL draft experts, Todd McShay, Mel Kiper Jr., and guys, let's dive right in and let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, the #1 overall pick. They were only 3-14 last season. I assume, Mel, you got to protect your franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Which way do they go with that #1 overall pick?
Shea, it all changed with free agency, and they designated franchise tag to Cam Robinson, left tackle, and Brandon Scherf, veteran from Washington, coming in at guard. So now all of a sudden you can go to a pass rusher, which is Aiden Hutchinson.
And I'll take that at #1 overall, especially in this class. It's not as rich at the top of the draft. In my opinion, you take the best player, the safest player, a guy who's going to be an impact starter right away and can get after the quarterback.
They got Josh Allen on one side, now you put Aiden Hutchinson on the other, and you got something going up front.
What about this next pick? And that would be the Jets. Todd, what do you think happens with the Jets here, who own 2 picks in the top 15?
If you get Evan Neal from Alabama or NC State's Ike Ekwonu, you're thrilled if you're the New York Jets, because you're getting potentially what could have been a #1 overall pick at #4. And then you go to #10, and it could be an edge rusher. Kayvon Thibodeau maybe falling, or Jermaine Johnson is a possibility. Trayvon Walker as well from Georgia. You're going to have options at #10.
You mentioned Jermaine Johnson the second at 10. The pass rusher, the edge guy, the way he bends the corner, he's got the strength, the production this year. I think they solidify the edge situation and maybe an offensive lineman, certainly wide receiver in play as well.
Jackson is dropped again.
In terms of protecting Lamar Jackson, who was sacked 38 times last season, do they go offensive line here, or do they maybe go to the defense?
Goes in the 20s. I don't think so. He's a great player. Will be a great anchor up front with Lamar Jackson. Linderbaum's a plug-and-play center, a future Pro Bowler. I think Linderbaum's the way to go here.
The Dallas Cowboys own Collins, and so where do they go here with this pick, guys?
Trevor Penning, this is where about in the range where he belongs. The Northern Iowa offensive tackle, still developing as a player, but my goodness, is he physically built and dominant and nasty. I've never seen Kiper, an offensive tackle, pick so many fights and then have so many guys want to fight him at the end of a Senior Bowl practice. It was unbelievable to watch.
How about Tyler Smith? Talk about fiery and nasty. He gets after you too, Todd, and he's still got a lot to learn about pass pro and technique and hand usage and all that. But the bottom line is he's got a ton of talent. Everything he does wrong is correctable, and he's got the attitude, he's got the athletic prowess. I like Tyler Smith here for the Cowboys as a right tackle hole filler for that football team.
All right, Todd McShay, Mel Kiper Jr., thanks, guys, as always, for the insight. NFL Draft, April 28th. It's all going down in Vegas.
Let's continue the discussion. NFL analyst Rob Ninkovich joining us now. All right, piggybacking on Mel and Todd on team needs in the trenches, which team, in your opinion, sir, is in most needs of offensive line help?
Well, I'm just going to stick to where I'm at right now, and that's in New England. You look at the offensive line in New England, they're going to be vital for Mac Jones in his second year, because really that rookie year to second year leap is really important. That #1, he's protected from the inside out. So that means your guards. You know, David Andrews is going to be there, but he's dealing with a little shoulder thing. He's going to be fine. He had a little repair in his shoulder, but then they trade away Shaq. Their guards are going to be an issue, so I'm thinking that they either select a guard in the draft. They have to have but on the other side, I think they need to draft a young talented tackle that can grow up with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is going to be here a long time, so they need to protect him. It's going to be huge this season that they, number one, protect Mac Jones, and number two, are able to run the football.
All right, New England for O-line help. Which team needs the most help on the defensive line?
Whew. I mean, the Lions, the Detroit Lions, you could go down the list on things that they need defensively, and pass rusher pretty much is number one. Interior help, they need more depth in the defensive line, and they're going to have to build that through the draft. So when you look at what they're trying to accomplish now, Detroit, look, for the last 10 years, it hasn't looked pretty. So they're going to have to try and draft as much talent as they can, try and fix that defense, do what they can best for offense. But this team, I mean, you look at like where they're at in the division, I think it's going to be hard for them to make a big jump from where they were last year to this year.
You said it hadn't looked pretty. Detroit has ranked in the bottom 4 in total defense in each of the last 3 years. No team has allowed